Hi everyone, and thank you very much for joining in. Thanks also for sending me your questions for my question and answer session about Overboard and about writing. So, without further ado, let's start with the first, which is from Dan. How do you determine which specific story concepts will be your next book? I'm generally into like the big themes, like obsession, identity. I'm more drawn to dark themes that are slightly disturbing. So those are the kind of concepts that I would work with, or which would begin the seed of an idea. The next question is from Ashley. Who or what inspired you to become a writer? I grew up with a bicycle, a piano, and a library card, and that's the only world that I know. I've always felt a need to explore and a sense of journeying beyond my four walls. And the next question is from Michael in Melbourne. Do you plan your book or just pour it out? Well, I come from a technical background. I'm an architect, so I have to plan everything. You can't build a building without plans. You're going to go mad. You're going to run out of materials and budget and time. And also, I tend to feel that it's a finite world that I'm creating. It's not going to go beyond 80,000 words. What styles of writers inspire you? I tend to prefer dark, suspenseful writers such as Graham Greene, Daphne du Maurier, David Soloy, S.J. Watson, Gillian Flynn. It's got to be obviously well written. I love going deep into the characters or into ideas. So it's got to be dark and it's got to be funny. Do you know the beginning, the middle, and the end? I know the beginning and the end. As I said, that's how I visualize the product. I have to make the middle exciting to match both the beginning and the end. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about Overboard. If you haven't read it, it's a multiple viewpoint narrative in four characters' voices. And as you can see, I'm wearing the band merch, the band lineup. So it's from the character viewpoint of you, who is the man who has been found alive after a shipwreck. He's the survivor, the only survivor. And he wakes up in a hospital in Thailand. He has no idea who he is. He just knows that his name is Greg because they told him that. And one day, Phoebe, a Malaysian Chinese wife, comes to pick him up. And technically, he should be thrilled that he even has a wife who is coming to pick him up. But he knows that something is not right, but he has no choice. He's completely mute. He's amnesiac, and he's penniless. So he has to go with her. Dominic, who is a wealthy city lawyer in London who's just been made redundant. We don't know how she's linked to the other characters. We just know that Przemek is a Polish plumber working in London who fixes her plumbing and her central heating, as well as Phoebe. So he's got some clients. The four narratives run in parallel because my novel has been described as a cubist novel where parts have to be put together like a puzzle. By you as a reader, you are actively in the novel because you are the fifth character. You know what's happening to each of them without them knowing what's happening to each of them. So it comes to my next question from Dave, which is how do you keep these lines of characters and their narratives together? How do you knit them together? How do you weave together? I'm very influenced by Quentin Tarantino's films, if anybody has seen Pulp Fiction, and also interconnected stories like Robert Altman's films, like Shortcuts. It starts anywhere. It starts in the middle. It starts in the end. It could start anywhere, but how are these characters related? And as you follow gradually the lines of narrative intersect and are revealed to you. And that's how you create suspense. Because if everybody knows everything at the start, there's no suspense. It's very boring. I think the process of discovery needs to be made by the audience, the reader. By Patrick in Texas, who says, what do you find most intriguing about the storylines in Overboard, and what led you to write the various sections from the perspective of each character? We're putting together a puzzle, or all of us, the writer, the characters, and the readers. We don't know what's happening until it is gradually revealed, not revealed at the end, because that's boring. You're making people sit through a whole thing. The other answer is that in a multiple narrative suspense, you you have to view a book like a building or a machine, something that can be taken apart technically and put back together, and taken apart and put back together as many times as is required, and it still fits perfectly. Do you model any of the characters from some of your experience or from people that you've met or observed? Yes, of course. I made them all, so I am all of them. But so are you. Characters in fiction are an extension of real life. So they might be characters that I have met in real life or are me, but I've changed them a bit so that they're not stereotypes. Like people in real life might not do something crazy, but in fiction and in films, in movies, they do. That's the whole point. That's why it's exciting. That's why we escape to those worlds. So, for example, Phoebe, she's a Malaysian Chinese graphic designer. So that's a world that I'm familiar with. But then she does this crazy thing of throwing away everything, giving up her job to go on a gap year for 2 years in Cambodia. Now, no Asians would do that, because who would go abroad, uh, work 6 days a week for nothing for 2 years? So it's something that no Asians would do. But I wanted to explore the what ifs. What if they did do that? What are they going to discover about their own culture and their life? Because she's doing it to rebel against her middle class upbringing, her parents. Her father is an eminent doctor, top neurosurgeon. So it's something that she wants to wash her hands off. She wants to try something else. She wants to be a part of her culture, which is the British culture. She wants to be someone who is like a white person who would do that, who would jack in everything and go to the East for 2 years. And Dominic and Przemek, their world, the luxury lifestyle world and the plumbing world is something that I'm very familiar with, because they're the people that I work with. If I had to do a lot of research for Overboard, and as you know, it's set in 3 countries and has a lot of very detailed atmospheric accounts of those countries. The only 2 areas of research that I had to put in some time was sailing, yachting, and storms, because it starts with a shipwreck and it starts at sea. And also I had to research about volunteering in Cambodia, volunteering on a gap year. Why do they do it? The motivations. What do they do? What's in their life when they go there? How will they change the life of the locals? Which obviously is their intention to transform themselves and others. If you'd like signed copies of Overboard, I will be delighted to dispatch them to you in any country in the world. It will be accompanied by a handwritten letter. And I hope to see you again. Bye.